Evening viewer, first episode of the Jen and Sean Show. We're once a week, co-host Jen.
Hi.
Ex-Queenslander, newly inducted Victorian and owner of the largest self-help library this side of the Julia Gillard Library. Yep, that's the thing. And me, your co-host Sean, ex-Tasmanian with a voice only half a pack of Long Beach green menthols can give. So essentially we go and do stuff and we tell you, the viewer, what it was like, whether it was worthwhile, who should go and do it. Simple. Where do we go this time, Jen?
We went to jail.
Nice.
We went to Pentridge, to be exact. Did a nighttime tour of H Division.
Right. So that's essentially one of the most fearsome correctional facilities in Australian history. It's a 1.5 hour tour at a cost of $45 convict coins per person, Thursday, Friday and Saturday nights. So Jen, given your true crime leanings and multiple misdemeanors, was this the immersive trip of your shady dreams or an overpriced bit of stale bread?
Alright, it was good. I don't think it was either of those. It wasn't the immersive trip of my shady dreams, and it wasn't also overpriced stale bit of bread. We initially went, I think it popped up, was it on your feed?
Yeah, it came through via What's On in Melbourne.
Yeah. And
it talked about a tour of, I think, the Melbourne jail, and then we'd spoken about before about going and looking at Pentridge.
Because I'd done Melbourne jail. Admittedly, it was 10 years ago, so I'm probably due to go again, but that was still pretty good. But yeah, Pentridge, obviously, with its history, was Hell Division, I think they called it.
That's where it got
its name from.
Yeah.
And obviously a lot of, I don't want to say famous, infamous inmates over time, so that was a good one to go and do.
So give us a couple of names of the infamous prisoners that were there.
Well, obviously Chopper.
Chopper Reid.
Everybody knows Mark Chopper Reid was in there.
No relation.
To who?
Me, I'm Tasmanian.
Oh, I don't think he's... Was he? I don't think he was from Tasmania.
His family's still there.
Yeah, but I don't think he was from there.
No, maybe not. But he's an infamous Tasmanian. Anyway,
sorry. We all know Chopper was in there. I think he spent about 20 years in there all up. Other names that I saw on the wall in one of the cells there, which I didn't know, Christopher Flannery spent some time in H Division in Pentridge. He was more well known for being a shady character from the Sydney underworld in the 70s and 80s. We had the Kane brothers, Brian Kane and Les Kane. If anyone's watched any of the original Underbelly series, no, the second one, sorry, you would have seen them in that one. Who else did we have in there? There was James Loughnan. He came up as one of the characters or sideline characters in the movie Chopper that Eric Bana was in. And the guy, Ronald Ryan, wasn't it? He was the last one to be hanged.
He was in about
Australia.
1970.
Yeah.
Last Australian male to be hung there. So, some infamous characters. We wanted to go because it was a night out, obviously. So how did we prep for the visit? We already spoke about how we found it. It was online. But how did we prep? We did something a bit special the night before.
Oh, we did. We rewatched the movie Chopper.
With Eric Bana,
because you just can never see that enough times. Although, interesting to note, if you're watching that on streaming, was it on Amazon or
which I'm going to say it was Netflix? Amazon.
Whichever streaming service we watched it on, they've actually cut out several, I'm not going to say key scenes, but they were noticeable scenes that are still present on the DVD.
What noticeable scene in particular you refer to?
In particular, the one where he's in the bar talking to a couple of the detectives, I think they were, that were in the process of giving him a green light to do whatever he wants, and he saw an attractive lady across the room while he was talking to said detectives and proceeded to, let's say, take a particular body part.
He flopped his dick out, didn't he? He flopped his dick out.
In the pub. But they'd removed that from the televised version. They hadn't removed any of the $5 swear words that were in there, though, so I found that interesting, the censorship on that. But anyway, that was our prep.
Yeah, so we thought, well, let's get into the vibe. Let's have a look at it. There's lots of shots in that movie of Pentridge, I think.
Do you know, I don't know. There was a couple in there after being there where I'm not 100% certain that they were actually shot on site.
Oh, great. All right.
I want to have another look at that,
Uh-huh.
particularly the scene where he has that blue with Keithy George, which is supposed to be in one of the yard areas. I don't know. It just doesn't seem like there was enough room in there unless they had some sneaky camera angles. But I'm not 100% sure. I'd like to do a bit more digging on that. So potentially,
well, you can put your sleuth hat on.
Yeah.
So that was our inspiration for some prep beforehand, just to get into the vibe of it all. So we decided to go the next night. We'd never been to Coburg really area before, 20 minutes north of the Melbourne CBD by car. Recently, I'm going to say in the last 5 to 7 years, the Pentridge Prison has actually been, let's say, gentrified. All the convicts had been swept out. It closed in 1997 and had been turned into townhouses, bougie little shopping centre, and very sort of cultured. It's got a beer garden in there now. It's got a very much seems to be a 5-star restaurant in there. So it's it gives off a pretty interesting vibe, surrounded by some of the very old architecture of a prison that was really established in 1851. I'm going to say.
And they've kept all the. I would imagine they're heritage listed. I don't know. But I would imagine all the outbuildings and the original walls and stuff like that, all that bluestone that it's constructed of, would be heritage listed. I think it's nice so that they've kept that, cleaned it up a bit.
Yeah, it looks very, very neat, very
gives it a bit of
tidy.
something.
Yeah, certainly a little bit of a different vibe to Port Arthur, which we can cover in another podcast. So we arrived there. It was for a night tour, 8:30 at night. Thought that'd be a little bit more, atmospheric. We've arrived early. We've decided to grab a bite to eat beforehand. And there were some options. The 5-star restaurant isn't our vibe, necessarily, or within my budget. So, as part of the romantic spendthrift that I am, decided for the, dumpling place that was upstairs. I forget the name of
I forget the name of it too. It was really good though.
It was good. Very reasonable price. Very packed. So it seems to be a hit with the locals, which was on a Thursday night?
Yes. Yeah.
So we went in there, had a bite to eat, and then decided we were a little bit early for our tour. So we wandered around the inside of the facility, having a look at the walls. Beautifully lit at night, I must say. It really gave off a really interesting sort of effect, how that put in a lot of the
uplights from the grounds and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. So then the tour began. We met in the tour office. They've got a nice little mini museum / merch area in there. We met a lovely sort of hostess that gave us a bit of an insight to when the tour was going to kick off. So after a bit of a wander, and there's a bit of information there you can read about. It also talks about the Apple movie that was shot there with Charlie Hunnam back in 2022.
Shantaram,
that's right.
which is based on the book written by Gregory David Roberts, who was another inmate at Pentridge, actually managed to escape without a lot of effort from what they were saying as well.
It seems they were pretty lax.
He got out pretty easily, and then he buggered off to India.
As you do.
And then I think they recaptured him. Was it in Frankfurt, or was it trying to...
It wasn't Frankston, so I'm going to say
no, not
probably
Frankston, Frankfurt. I think it was Frankfurt, and he was in the process of trying to smuggle heroin in over there as well. So then they recaptured him, and then he had this epiphany.
He obviously
found himself, and
before that hadn't found himself, but smuggling heroin.
Then he got all spiritual after that and decided to write.
And made some coin note out of that as well.
A significant book, though. Did you see the size of that thing?
Yeah,
it's very thick.
Massive. Yeah, massive.
Big read.
So the upper floor of the tour area is pretty much dedicated to the production of that. It's got a few uniforms and things in there, but the building itself is actually quite fascinating. So anyway, our tour began with our lovely host, Damien.
Damien was great.
Damien is a fanboy.
Damien's quirky.
He's really into this thing.
Yeah, very passionate.
Super into it, which is what you want from a tour guide who's going to wander around with a few strangers. So let's just set the scene. There was myself and Jen. There were 2 other couples of an age, I suppose, around us. We're sort of mid to late 40s. There was a father-son. There were older people. Yeah, fair enough. We were on the younger side. There was a father-son there. This is really aimed at any, I suppose, couples or singles even. It was the 16 years and over tour because they go into a little bit of, let's say, adult topics about some of the convicts and what they got up to. And there's some adult material and content as well about H Division. So we began the tour. We started outside for about half an hour, walked around some of the grounds, gave some insights, some history, which is pretty cool. The weather was good, so it wasn't a bad thing. It wasn't too cold.
No.
So after half an hour, then we went to the focus of this particular tour, which was H Division. Now, there are other tours you can go on, which are family friendly through the day, and there's also other divisions you can go on as well. So there's a little bit of repeat ability about the particular tour. It's not necessarily a one and done, but we were interested in H Division mainly because we're a little bit macabre and a bit of Chopper fanboys as well.
A little bit. And they'd only started doing, did he say April?
Yeah,
they
April
only
this
reopened
year.
it. It hasn't been open for any sort of tours prior to that point. The rest of the jail has, but they didn't take anyone through H, and they've done a bit of a, well, by what he was saying, a clean out. I'm guessing that they had a pretty big episode with a pressure hose in there to get some of the smells out that they were talking about. But they've tidied it all up.
Yeah, very much so. So overall, the tour went for an hour and a half. Went into H Division where there was some new tech where you'd walk in with provided with an iPod and headphones, self-guided tour a little bit, and so you'd walk through and a Bluetooth a bit of tech would trigger and would tell a story about a specific cell or a specific little content. How'd you find that, Jen?
That was good. It was a bit laggy, but, that could just be being a little bit
you were on
precious
Facebook
about
or
it.
something, you were on the Instas checking something else out.
No. Just sort of as you'd walk out, like they had the little plaques there. So when it said when you walk into that area, it would kick in, and then when you walk out, it would stop. But it's probably about a 10-15 second delay. Again, no big deal. Once you sort of realised that just had to catch up.
Yeah.
But no, that was good because you could do it at your own pace, and you didn't have to. Like I remember with the Port Arthur one. It went through different chapters that you could pick and choose depending on where you were, and that was through. Was that through Spotify? Yeah, I think it was. It was like a podcast you downloaded, and you could do that when you walk around. So this one was good. I think the little snippets that they did of each area, they weren't too long.
No,
which was good. They were less than 5 minutes each.
Yeah.
And relevant to whatever cell or yard area or whatever you were in.
Yep.
So I like that. That was good.
It was good. I felt a bit time pressured after a bit, and we were listening to a few things, and the cells some of them were dressed up. They didn't have a lot of content in there, so I felt that after you've been through a couple of them, it was kind of like
seen one, seen them all.
Yeah, there wasn't a lot more else sort of going on. Still interesting. Damien was having a bit of a kip by this stage, so we were just self-led, and it had 2 levels. You could go upstairs, and one of the interesting things was some of the prisoner graffiti that was left behind. That was probably part of the adult content for the 16 years and older. So
some of that definitely.
Amateur illustrators had left some interesting things up there. So
yes, the artists.
That's right. So we sort of concluded the tour. There was a bit of Q&A in terms of...
everyone wanting to know if Damien could tell them what cell Chopper was in, which he didn't know.
Yeah. No big deal. So... ultimately, what's your, I suppose, rating out of 5 if you're going to give it a rating?
I'd probably go 3.5.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So worthwhile. That's a recommendation, I suppose, in our book.
Worth doing, purely from a historical perspective, I guess, to get an idea of, it's part of Australia's history, grim or otherwise, and I think it's still worth... I don't know whether appreciate's the right word, but, you sort of... can try and get a feel for what it was actually like. And when you think about how long some of these people were in there, yes, obviously they'd earned their right to be there because they'd done the wrong thing, not saying that shouldn't have happened, but it's a bit of a shitty existence. Like, those cells are tiny. The yard areas are ridiculously small. Like, they talk about them having exercise space. I think the yards at Port Arthur would have given them more space
They
to
seem
move
to be
around.
bigger.
Like they could easily, at least, walk from one end to the other. But those, the rock breaking yards at Pentridge.
That was pretty interesting, yeah.
And, you know, they were denying up until, was it 1985 or 75? I want to say
in the
85.
70s. No, it was in the 70s.
Was it? They were denying that they were
stopped
still doing
them making
rock breaking,
rocks.
but they were still doing it.
So it's pretty brutal.
Yeah.
So very much a brutal part of Australian history. It's been revamped fairly spectacularly, I'll say.
The precinct itself is beautiful now.
Yeah, I think next time if we go, it'd be to check out that beer garden and maybe some of the other tours. So as a recommendation, look, it's got a little bit of replayability. You can go back there again. You can have a beer. You can have some food. Even do a little bit of shopping. So it's pretty bougie.
There's a hotel there that you can stay now.
Yeah, the Adina.
The Adina at Pentridge, which is actually, I like how they've got it inside the actual compound area. Don't know whether that'd be creepy or not. That might be interesting to do.
Yeah, maybe you could play up your favourite dress-ups from your room and overlook and do a bit of role play, but that's maybe me. So there you have it. Pentridge, thumbs up in terms of recommendation, 3.5 out of 5. Value for money, it's okay. So in our next section, we're just going to talk about what we've been watching for the week. This may be a movie, TV show, listening to a podcast, something or rugby union. We have some interesting retrospective movies that were made to watch from time to time through what teenagers are into. And Jen, what did you get made to sit through last night?
Twilight,
a 2008 teen, I'm going to say pre-teen kind of vampire film.
Vampires. It's just vampires. I've managed to go my entire life without watching Twilight. I haven't seen Twilight. I haven't seen Game of Thrones. I haven't seen... What was that other one that you were talking about? And I haven't seen
many
Heaps
movies
of them.
you haven't
Anyway.
seen. So Twilight.
Yeah. I don't do vampires.
What did you think? You don't do vampires.
I don't like vampires.
But they're all the rage.
I know, but they're creepy. It was underwhelming.
Yeah.
I get the concept behind it. I get the story. There's some interesting themes, all that stuff, and there's some bits that pulled out, but really bad acting. Like, just no.
So to set the scene, this was my 17-year-old who had been introduced to Twilight and that sort of genre when they were 11, I'm going to say. Quite young. Impressionable, let's say, and got swept up in the whole vampire-y teen vampire thing.
Like everybody else.
Like everybody else. So, to be fair, ran headlong into that sort of niche and has loved it ever since. And they acknowledged that the acting is really bad, didn't they?
Yeah. Still love the movie, but say that it's basically crap. This is also on the back of me getting to choose to watch Chopper last week in preparation for the prison tour, and it's kind of punishment for that, I guess. But anyway.
Yeah, it fits. Crime and punishment.
Yeah.
So Twilight was their choice to put on. And Jen, you know, out of 5, what would you give it?
2.
It's pretty forthright 2. So not a recommendation.
No. You know, like there were some interesting themes in it, and there's a couple of bits in there where you can kind of read underneath the terrible, terrible acting to see sort of, you know, a vibe in there. But, just the long pauses and the dark stares and the smouldering looks and too much lipstick on what's his name and no, they look dead and no. Well,
they are vampires. They are the undead.
I know.
So, looking dead is the vibe they were going for. So maybe they nailed it. I don't know. Yeah. Look, for me, I'd probably agree with the 2-star rating. Ultimately, it hasn't aged very well either, I don't think.
No.
But hey, they're still pumping out books and
there's
going to be a
Stephanie
TV show.
Meyer's
So, based on that as well. So we've got that to look forward to. Looking at our next section, we're just going to look at, what are we actually watching that's fairly current? Something that's fairly new, that's either on the streaming platforms or on free-to-air TV. Jen, what have you been watching lately?
Well, after we finished binge watching the Guy Pearce thing, what was that?
Oh, yeah, Jack Irish,
which is amazing.
Fabulous.
If you get the chance to go back and rewatch that, highly recommend it. But no, now we're on to Ted Lasso.
All right. So, Ted Lasso, we're about 3/4 of the way through the first season.
Yeah.
It's fair to say that you're not really a soccer fan.
No.
Yeah. But you're a bit of a fan of the main character, yeah?
Yeah, look, okay, don't get me wrong, I can appreciate soccer. That's cool, and I get that, you know, people devote their lives to it and very athletic, blah, 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 all that. It's just that I feel like they get ripped off. They spend so long running around that field backwards and forwards, exerting themselves, no breaks, and there's no one scores.
There's no payoff.
No.
No, I get it.
Anyway.
With Ted Lasso, though, it doesn't show a lot of,
No.
let's call it football.
Well, it's not about the football. It's about the mindset of the players. It's about him having to basically
Coach Ted Lasso.
pick them up and revive them and get them to a point where they actually want to succeed, because previously they were just so defeated by, I don't know, their reputation or their performance or everyone calling them crap or whatever it was, that they just basically given up. So
so at this stage, Ted Lasso has finished. It's had 3 seasons and it's had a finale. So we're playing a bit of catch up. We're trying to find time to watch TV. So it's not always at our fingertips. But certainly, recommendation. I'm
enjoying it.
I would say its audience is pretty broad. It's funny, it's sweet, it's bittersweet. It doesn't overstay its welcome. It's half an hour an episode, so you can smash out 1 or 2 pretty quickly. But if you're like us, we probably smashed out 4 in one go with a few wines and just had to call it because it was getting pretty late.
It was too much.
It was too much.
Yeah.
Too much Ted Lasso. But that was good. So what would you rate that out of 5, Jen?
I'd be giving that a 4.
A 4? Well, that's a strong recommendation.
Yeah. No, I do like it. It's good. Better than I thought it was going to be.
Brilliant. So if we're going to go back in time a little bit, we touched on Jack Irish. Look, we'll cover that in our next pod.
Okay.
As a bit of a retrospective, but that's certainly one that tickled our fancy as well. So that's the end of the show. Thanks again. You can find us on our socials on Twitter at Jen_Sean Show. We'll also put the links in our show notes so you can find us there, as well as TV shows, movies and so forth that we've been watching. So again, if you've got any questions or any requests or places that you want us to check out, or have any feedback, whether we're doing great, crap or otherwise, drop us a line. Again at Jen_Sean Show on Twitter. Great. Thanks,
cool.
Jen.
Thank you.
Done. One and done.
No, tick that off.
Yeah, it's probably our last one for
No.
But we'll see how we go.
We'll keep potting on.
Alright, keep potting on.
Aha!
Hey!
That was actually not intentional. That was just me not being able to speak properly. But
Dad jokes
with it. Yeah.
So cool. So, everybody, thanks again for listening. Viewer, great to have you on board. Catch you next week.
Bye.
Bye for now.